Welcome to the Vintage Ballers podcast. I'm your host, Brad Coreno, and on today's episode, we have former NBA player JR Bremer joining us. JR starred at St. Bonaventure before playing several seasons in the NBA, primarily with Boston and Cleveland, and then heading off to Europe where he finished out his career. So without further ado, please welcome JR Bremer. You know, when you growing up, did you have any favorite player or team?
Yeah, my favorite player was Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Isaiah.
He played for the Bad Boys, and I just loved how he ran the point guard. And so growing up, that was the guy I liked.
I think Isaiah, in my opinion, is he doesn't get enough credit he deserves, in my opinion. And obviously with him and MJ, we know the whole story. But I feel like I actually watched a documentary on the Bad Boy Pistons a couple years back. And, I was a little kid then growing up. So I remember him, but I never really appreciated his play until I watched that documentary. And
right.
I think it was game 6 or one of the series. He had basically, had a broken or a sprained ankle.
Couldn't even walk.
21 points. He couldn't even walk. That was unbelievable. And I remember my brother talking about him because my brother was a basketball player back in the day. And growing up, I remember him telling me how great Isaiah was. But again, he was a Showtime Lakers guy, so he didn't. He was always rooting against Isaiah.
Right.
That documentary really showed me how tough Isaiah was and really what a leader he was. And it's one of those guys I feel doesn't get mentioned enough in the greatest point guards conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I feel the same way. Like, I was young and he was my guy, but I didn't really understand how good he was until I can look at the games now, or like you say, see that documentary and really understand and appreciate what he brought to the court every night.
Exactly. And so getting to your, high school days, you went to Cleveland Heights.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so I used to work with a woman whose son-in-law went to Cleveland Heights. He was a big football player there named Barry Cofield.
Okay,
Yep. So Barry went to Northwestern, played for the Giants, won a Super Bowl. So I kind of knew a little bit about Cleveland Heights because of her, and she'd always talk about Barry. And, so it was funny. I always hear Cleveland Heights. So when I found out you were the coach there, I didn't realize you went there. And what was your experience like playing there? And when did you realize that you could play, major college basketball?
My experience was a learning experience, to be honest. Because coming in my freshman year, I think I was 5'5", and nobody expected me to be anything as far as a basketball player or having a future with it. So I was still good. I could shoot the ball from far, but I was little, and I had a big growth spurt that next year where I grew to about 6'1" or 6'2", and that's when I played JV and I dressed varsity, and I understood that I maybe could have a future in basketball. And my junior year, we won states. The first time for Jim Capelletti, the only time in Cleveland Heights history that we won the state championship. And I had a solid role. A lot of the guys around me were the scorers. I was more the distributor. And then my senior year, I turned into that guy, into the man pretty much, and took the bulk of the scoring upon my back and averaged 27 and got a full scholarship to St. Bonaventure.
So take us through your junior year and winning that state championship. What was it like going through the tournament and just getting to that point where we were playing in the Final Four, then state championship game?
We knew we had the team to do it. We had our leaders with Theo Dixon and Jamal Harris. And on that team, everybody knew what their role was. Like, my role was to distribute the ball and knock down the shots. We had Butchie, whose role was to play defense and hit the corner shot. Torrey Reed, who was post up, offensive rebounding. Other than that, get the ball to Theo and Jamal and let them make plays. And that's how our team was built. And we were built like a brotherhood. We did a lot of things together. And I think all that plays a part in having team chemistry and being a good team. And then going down the states, it was like a deer in headlights for me because I was young. You see the big Ohio State arena that holds so many thousand fans, and it was full when we came out there. And we were the underdogs, which put even more of a chip on our shoulder, and we just came out, played hard, and we were fortunate in the state championship game that their big Seth missed the layup at the buzzer to send it to that made it go to overtime. He would have won it if he had made that layup. Wow. And I guess he rushed it because of the time, and in overtime we stepped up and I made some free throws to clinch it.
So who did you play in the semifinal game, and who did you play in the state championship?
I can't remember the team in a semifinal game, but I know I think it might have been Springfield North or something like that, but we played Zanesville in the championship game.
And was that D1 or D2?
D1. That's
Wow,
what's
that's big time.
and then Travis was the point guard. They had some really good players.
Wow, yeah, that's big time. I mean, D1, for those of you watching who aren't from Ohio, Ohio sports in general, football, basketball, baseball, you name it. There's a lot of talent here, and there's a lot of. I mean, the state championships in any sport it's hard to win one here.
Right.
So that's a heck of an accomplishment. So when you winning that state championship, did that do anything for you personally as far as developing a confidence going into your senior year?
A little bit, just because you're a champion, but I knew my role was going to change drastically coming into that next year, losing those two guys and our two leading scorers, our two leaders of the team. So it gave me confidence knowing that I could play at the highest level against the best players and be able to compete and hold my own. So that helped going into that. And I had signed a letter of intent to St. Bonaventure after that winning that state championship. Didn't have many offers, and they came with a full ride, and I accepted it.
I was going to ask you about that. So that process. So you actually accepted junior year then?
Yes, but yes, before my senior year,
Wow.
I signed before my senior year. I didn't really have, but maybe one other offer at that time. And when they came, they're Atlantic 10 big time conference. They were 3 hours away, so my family could still come to the games, and I would be in a position where I would be able to play as a freshman. I couldn't ask for much more than that, so I signed.
Was that Jim?
Barron.
Barron. Yep.
Jim.
And that was like late 90s, early 2000s, and I was a huge college basketball nut in the 90s when I was younger. Going into St. Bonnie's, like, what was your mindset going into freshman year? And it's a major college basketball. Was it something you thought like, okay, this is going to be a huge transition, or were you mentally prepared to take that on?
I mean, my work ethic was so. I worked so hard in the off season every single year, and I worked so hard during the games, my junior and my senior year. And then when having a successful senior year as I did, and then other offers came from some bigger colleges, just gave me the confidence that I know I can play at that next level, and then just keep putting in the work in the weight room and in the gym to prepare myself as much as I can to get ready for it. Because, I mean, coming from high school, going to college is like night and day. They'll tell you to prepare for it, but you don't really understand it until you get there. And I try to tell my kids that now, and they still don't get it until. Yeah.
What was the talent jump like, playing major college basketball compared to, high school?
Oh, it was completely different. They were so much stronger, so much faster, and so much more athletic. Like what we see at the high school level is nothing compared to what you're going to see at the college level, because maybe against some teams they'll have one or two guys who are really, really good. And at that college level, every college is getting the best guys from each different city. So it's definitely a different style of play, something you got to get ready for.
Who is some of the guys you faced in college that you look back on now that, give me 3 or 4 names that you faced that you would say these guys were, terrific?
Ben Gordon, Karan Butler. I faced those guys at
oh yeah, UConn.
And we unfortunately we beat them at their place.
Did you really?
Out of conference team won in that big arena. Tony Stanley, he went to Dayton. He was a really good player. Troy Bell was at Boston College. So, but A10, the Atlantic 10 overall as a whole was really tough with Tempo and Pepe Sanchez and Lynn.
Yeah, Grid. I remember Pepe. Oh yeah.
You had UMass with those big guys. You had Kevin Lyden. You had Xavier with David West and Romain Sato. It was a great conference.
I had a guy in here named Abdul Fox who played for Rhode Island back in the day in the mid '90s, and then he helped recruit Tyson Wheeler there. So,
okay.
And I remember they had Catino, of course, and then Lamar, and they had some nice players
Lamar
as well.
And Zach Marbury was the guys I played against.
Yep. It's funny because at A10 back then, it was stacked. I mean, I think Eddie Jones played back in those days, like in the mid '90s, and a lot of talent back then.
Nothing to play with. We were small, St. Bonaventure, 3,000 student school, but we came prepared and we came ready to fight every game.
That's how I got to really know St. Bonnie's, just through watching all the A10 and kind of, so it's funny looking back at some of the names that Abdul mentioned too, and then hearing some of the names you mentioned. It was definitely it was a loaded conference back in those days and had a lot of interesting games going on.
Yes.
So let's go, looking at your college days, give me, what are 1 or 2 moments in college that you experiencing them that kind of gave you the ammunition to eventually make it to the NBA and of course Europe. Well, was there a season or a moment that you thought, okay, I could take that next step?
I think it was a little bit of both. Every year from my freshman to my senior year, I improved statistically from points and rebounds and assists. So every year I got better, and I got more minutes. I think that helped. Making a tournament my sophomore year, playing against Kentucky here at home, and taking them to double overtime
Wow.
really helped my confidence, and I ended up getting the player of the game for that. And then after that, we had my junior year. We went to the NIT, another postseason tournament. So we had a successful seasons. And in my last year, Coach Barron left and went to Rhode Island, and Jan Van Bredikoff came, and he had a more up-tempo style, play defense, get out, shoot threes. Coach Barron was more New York style, point guard, things like that. And that year, before the season started, we had a road trip to Europe. We played 3 different countries against the professional teams, and I averaged probably about 38 points a game.
Oh my God.
And at that time, I was like, well, I need to really, really focus in on this basketball thing because I have the chance to make a career out of it.
When I first, your name was synonymous back then with 3-point shooting, with shooting in general. And I remember you made the rookie all second team with Boston. I believe you're in 2002-3. And that's kind of when you came onto the scene out of college, and everybody, that's when I first knew who you were outside of St. Bonnie's. And going into, let's go to the pre-draft. I think, was it Chicago that you had a pre-draft with? What was that like, and who was there at the time? Was it I'm trying to think, in 02, who that had been, like Eddie Curry and those guys, or who was?
That's Yao Ming, Jason Williams, Karan Butler, Marsh.
Okay.
That crew, Dan Dickow,
Yep.
Errol Pargo, who else was in? Juan Dixon. So it was very.
I forgot about Juan Dixon.
Yeah, and I was a little unknown player. I mean, people knew me just because I was 4th in the nation in scoring, but they didn't take that to heed too much because I was at St. Bonaventure, and during that time, it really wasn't a scoring point guards league. And as talking about the NBA, because when you had Jason Kidd and Gary Payton and Sam Cassell, those were set up guys, post up guys. So me being a scoring guard didn't sit well with a lot of teams just because of the way I played. But I had a great Chicago camp, and then I went to probably 20 different individual workouts, and I thought I was going to get drafted, but unfortunately I didn't get my name called. But that didn't stop the work. I just continued to work and went to some mini camps and summer leagues, and eventually Boston took me before I got a chance to leave and go play for Toronto.
Do you ever look back or actually look forward, I should say, to this generation and think, wow, I wish I could have come out in the last 5 years with all the shooters and the way? I mean, I look at the Cavs with Darius Garland and the guys they have now. It's like that would fit your game perfectly.
I do all the time. All the time. I tell my friends always tell me that I grew up with, and then I tell the younger kids, like, this era right here would have been perfect for me to come out with the deep three that they see Steph shooting or Trae Young shooting. I was shooting those in college. I was shooting those in high school. It wasn't normal. Now it's normal.
Exactly. And then you seem like one of the players that would have fit in perfectly. I mean, that was your style, the up and down, good long distance shooter. I mean, that was exactly what, and today, the scoring point guard is kind of the thing. I mean, Steph Curry, you look through all, Westbrook, John Wall, you go down the list of different guys, Chris Paul, whoever, even though Paul can set people up, he's still a scorer.
He's still a scorer. Damian Lillard, the same way.
Damian Lillard, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you go on the list and it's all scoring point guards really. And even Colin Sexton. So you got guys now, you're right. It's very different than it was 20, 25 years ago when it was more about setting guys like Shaq and Olajuwon up.
Right.
Now it's running through, the perimeter players. So, and I've had other guys in this podcast who said the same thing. Like, I wish I would have played 15, or I wish I would have played now as opposed to 15, 20, 25 years ago.
Right. I definitely feel it.
So take us through your rookie year in Boston. What was that like, making it to the NBA? And that's a huge, huge deal. And, you were second team all rookie, which is incredible. And you come out of really looking where you came from to where you got. That was pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. It was different. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of movement that I had to do to be able to put myself in the best situation to be able to make it to the NBA. And as I said, I went to so many different individual workouts, and then I went to 3 or 4 mini camps and 3 different summer leagues. And I was supposed to leave Boston. I played 2 games for Boston. That's one of the only teams I didn't work out for. I didn't have any communication with, any contact. And I went to them for 2 days as a stopgauge before I went to Toronto, and we played two summer league games. And after that second one, I was packing my bags, getting ready to go to fly to Toronto, where I thought I was going to get drafted. And I got the call, and they said, we want to offer you a 2-year contract. And I mean, that was a dream come true. And then that's when even more work started. We started the preseason and things like that. I'm the rookie, so a lot of things got put on me, and then I wasn't playing. I probably didn't play for the first 35 games. I got the last 15 seconds when you're down 30, or the last minute when you up 40, those type of things. And when you get in there, they want you to shoot. Like, man, I've been sitting on the bench for 40 minutes. I can't shoot an NBA 3 right now. So you start looking at my percentages. I'm shooting probably 13% because I'm 1 for 15 from 3 because I'm only shooting them with 5 seconds on the clock. And then I got a break. They always told me to stay ready. You're gonna get an opportunity in the league. You just have to be ready when it comes. And unfortunately, Tony Delk had twisted his ankle, and Shammond Williams was the backup, and I guess he wasn't playing to the coach up to the coach's expectations. And they called me in to the office before we played Houston Rockets, and I thought I was going to get waived. It was around that time where your contract becomes guaranteed 3 days later, and they said, JR, tomorrow you're starting. And it's back-to-back versus Houston and the Spurs. So I went from not playing any minutes to having to guard Steve Francis and Cuttino Mobley, and then the next day, Tony Parker. So
jeez, talk about being thrown to the fire.
Thrown right into the fire. But the main job at my position for the Celtics was to get the ball up, get us into the offense, and spot up in the corner. And when they doubled off Antoine and Paul, knocked the shot down. And that's what I did. And I kept the starting job from the rest of the season on.
So, with playing with Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker, and I think was Eric Williams in that team, and Tony Battie and those guys, yeah, they had a good team. That was a nice, solid team. Mm-hmm. And I actually had Kenny Anderson on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was on the team. He was on that same team right before that, and
right.
With Paul and those guys. And so, what was it like playing with a Hall of Famer like Paul Pierce?
I mean, it was easy. He made my job so much easier because there was no pressure or anything. He's one of the best small forward shooting guards that played. He's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame. And, he just depended on me specifically to knock down shots if my guy doubled or when my guy doubled, because I don't think anybody, especially during that time, was going to be able to guard Paul or Antoine one-on-one. So they had to give something up. But just playing with those guys, watching how they work after practice and before practice, just being true professionals helped me understand how to really be a professional.
Yeah, it had to. I mean, watching the maturation of Paul, coming out of college, at Kansas, I really didn't know what he'd be like in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if he, I didn't see him being as great as he ended up being.
Right.
And he proved me wrong. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was like Steph Curry, Steph in college was, a phenomenon, but I didn't think he carried that into the NBA and obviously superstar.
Yeah.
So, but Paul was.
You don't really understand how good he is, because when I was watching on TV before, until I got into the gym with him to understand his footwork and how he can get his shot, any shot that he wants. He looks like he's a little bit slow or a little bit out of shape, but he's in tip-top shape, and his footwork is ridiculous.
I mean, him and LeBron would have some battles back in the day.
They would.
They're epic. They're legendary.
Right.
And you're talking about LeBron. I mean, obviously one of the 2 or 3 greatest players of all time, arguably. And Paul was right there with them step by step. And they had that. I think Game 7 in 2008 was obviously one of the greatest Game 7s of all time. And I think Paul put in 41 or 45, and LeBron put in 40 something. So
they both had 40.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible.
Right at each other like a heavyweight boxing match. Just one punch, the other one get punching right back.
So speaking of LeBron, the following season after Boston, you join Cleveland, and you get to play with a rookie LeBron James. So talk about, I mean, going from Paul Pierce to LeBron, that's a heck of a duo to play with.
Yeah, that's a great duo. But LeBron, his was just so much, the buzz and the hype was just so much higher coming into Cleveland, just because of what his potential was and what he had done at the high school level. Cleveland at that time weren't too successful, so they had all the hope that he was going to come in and change not the program, but changed around the whole team. And he did that, and he was a phenomenon, like literally a phenomenon, way beyond his years as a 17 or 18-year-old kid coming into a grown man's league. He looked like he belonged there from the beginning. Sometimes young kids come in, you can tell he's young. he has potential, but he has to grow and work on this. But from the jump, he showed that he belonged there, and he's still doing it 17 years later.
It's incredible. He's a freak of nature. I mean, I watch him and I think, I don't know how this guy, he's still the best player in the game. I mean,
Right.
he's incredible.
He is.
And,
He is.
when you, I mean, you were one of the few guys that will ever get to say I played with a rookie LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
And what would, you know, again, I know you said that right off the get go, you knew he was going to be great, but how special did you think he'd become? I mean, do you think he'd be an all time great, or do you think he'd just be, do you think of him as just a nice all star, or we're talking Hall of Fame great,
And as a rookie, I don't think anybody could have came and said I knew he was going to be as good as he is now, because he's matured a lot. His body has changed a lot. His game has actually changed a lot, and it's evolved for the better, in my opinion. So I knew he was going to be good. I knew he was going to be an all-star, but to be in the talks of the greatest ever, I can't sit here and say that I knew that would happen. I can see how it happened, but it wouldn't have been something I would have came home with and said, man, this kid I'm playing with, that's a rookie right now, he's going to be one of the best ever. The people would have looked at me crazy.
Well, I remember there was people back then who, and no disrespect to Melo or Darko, those other guys, but thought those other guys were going to be better. I mean, a lot of people wanted Melo here instead of
Melo.
LeBron.
Right.
Oh, and again, no disrespect to Melo. He's a heck of a player, but obviously LeBron is in a different stratosphere than almost anybody.
Sure.
And, I remember even people thought about Darko, and there's other guys back then that people thought might end up being better. They thought LeBron can't shoot, all that stuff. Obviously, he proved everybody wrong. But I was one of those guys. I love LeBron because I knew about him way back, even before SVSM. But, I was wondering, is this kid going to be, a superstar, or is he just going to be a nice player? No one was really sure. And I remember he had like a 40-some point game against the Nets, I believe, that year, his rookie year. Mm-hmm. And that's when I kind of realized, like, wow, this kid he's different.
Yeah. I knew he was different when we were in practice and I threw him an alley-oop, and it was the worst alley-oop probably you ever seen in your life. And he literally jumped over Kevin Ollie to catch it probably at the top of the square and finish it. And I said, oh my God, this guy's 17 doing this right here.
Wow.
18 doing this right here. So he's definitely a freak of nature, to say the least.
Oh, I remember him posterizing poor Damon Jones. I mean, some of the guys he posterized, and it's funny, he's not really as much of a high flyer anymore. He does every now and then. Mm-hmm. But back in those days, some of his dunks, I think he posterized Sheed and the Celtics and Garnett and those guys a couple times.
He got a lot of them back then. He got
a lot of them.
Really over the rim. He doesn't play as much over the rim as he used to. No. But I mean, if you get in the way, you still better be careful. He's still a dunker.
Oh yeah. So take us through your year in Cleveland. What was that like? What was the experience like? And what was your primary role that year? And it was Paul Silas, I believe, was the coach that year. Mm-hmm. And what was it like playing for Paul? And what was it like, being on that team? I think was Capono on that team, Jason Capono, and
he came next year, Capono.
Oh, okay, he came the next year. I'm thinking of Darius Miles on the team, Boozer,
Darius Miles, Ricky Davis, Boozer,
Ricky Davis, Big Z, obviously.
Yeah,
Dewan, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys had a lot of talent. I know it wasn't really put together, but it was a lot of talent.
Yeah. I mean, it was when we had a summer league game versus the Cavs when I was playing for Boston, and LeBron had a really good game, and I had a really good game. And right after that game, I got the call and said I was getting traded to Cleveland. So at first thought, it was like, man, it's the best thing in the world to ever happen to me, that I'm going home to play in the NBA in front of everybody I grew up with. And not when I'm thinking about it now, it might not have been the best thing to happen, to come home to where everybody knows you, where everybody has so many distractions, so many things that can pull you away from your focus. And but coming into the season, DeJuan Wagner was hurt, so I got extra minutes. In the first game versus Sacramento, we played well. We ended up losing. LeBron had a good game. I had a really good shooting game. It was a record that I had just got broken recently from when you get traded the most threes for the first game after you get traded.
Really?
At 6. And
was that first game against Sacramento?
First game versus Sacramento.
No kidding.
Yes. So I was playing, and then once DeJuan Wagner came back, just my minutes and everything just kind of diminished to more of a bench role.
Yeah, I mean, DeJuan was a top 5 or 10 pick the year before.
Yeah, DeJuan was really good.
Oh, he had a lot of talent. I mean, it never panned out, but I remember in college, I think he scored 60-some points in a game, and he was incredible.
He with the best of them, he had a really nice spin move, and we went through that year, and then by the time we it was coming to the deadline to get waived or to go to a playoff team, and a couple teams were asking about me, trying to see if they could trade for me, and the Cavs decided no, it was in their best interest to keep me on the team, which I was okay with. And then March 1st came. If you get waived or traded before March 1st, you can play for a playoff team. If you get waived or traded, or if you get waived after March 1st, you can't play for any playoff team. You can go to another team, but if they can't be in the playoffs. And March 2nd, I came to practice and they waived me.
Wow.
So I just went. After that, I signed with Golden State a 10-day contract, and signed another 10-day contract with Golden State. And after that, if you sign 3 of them, they have to sign you for the rest of the season. So we played in Philly. My 10 days was up, and I came back home to Cleveland. They were going to Boston. They didn't re-sign me. Avery Johnson got hurt in Boston, and the very next game for the Warriors was to play the Cavaliers. And they called me and said, we're signing you for the rest of the season. Meet us down at the gym. So
Wow.
I ended up back in the gym versus the Cavs as a Warrior.
Only fitting, I guess.
Right.
So, finishing out your NBA career, and then I want to talk about Europe, because I'm kind of fascinated by your European career and going overseas.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, what was your mindset after the 2004 season? Were you looking to go to Europe? Were you thinking, okay, I'm going to try to, stay in the NBA somewhere, or do you always kind of want to get over to Europe eventually?
No, I wanted to stay in the NBA. I actually got drafted in the expansion draft by the Bobcats.
Oh, really?
So I thought I was gonna be in the NBA, and I had recently changed agents, and I called my agent and say, well, what's going on? The summer league is in Minnesota. When should I pack? What do I have to do? And he was like, no, they drafted you, but they don't have any interest in bringing you in. So that's when I signed with Toronto for summer league, and it didn't pan out. And a very nice offer came from overseas from a team in Spain, and that my agent brought to me, and I was gonna have the opportunity to play and make some money at the same time. So I chose to go over there just because I would rather play and then just sit on the bench for 3 or 4 years and not get any playing time, because I love the game so much. So I ended up going over in Europe and made a career out over there.
I mean, you had a heck of a career over there, and you played in multiple countries and multiple leagues. Take us through what was the experience like? First of all, new languages, new culture. What was the toughest aspect of having to move, overseas, and really you're changing your entire life? Like, what were some of the difficult aspects of that?
I'm a pretty outgoing person, so just going over there by myself really wasn't that bad. But I ended up going to Spain, and you see things about Spain on TV, and you think this and you think that, but there's nothing like the pictures and things that you see. Like, I was the only American on the team, so I didn't really have anybody to talk to. Most of the Spanish guys didn't speak English. Luckily, it was a couple of French guys who spoke English, so I gelled with them pretty well. But basketball over there was good. A lot more practicing. It's a lot more physical, I would say. But the gym, I went to Malaga, it held like 15,000, and it was full, the whole 15,000, loud, blow horns. It's completely different than here in the league. Just how much the fans are into the game and what they do for the team with the band playing and the drums. But it's a great experience.
Now, do they all know that you're an NBA player? I mean, they realize like
Yeah,
the fans all know that, and okay.
The fans, I'm not sure if they know. All the players, all my teammates knew, and then a couple of the fans would ask for autographs and things like that. But the other ones, I don't think they knew.
Okay.
Exactly who I was.
And how did you, so what did you, not to get too personal here, but what did you do on the weekends? Like, did you, if you didn't, obviously if you don't speak the language and you don't have, a lot of friends over there, what did you do?
I had video games. I played a lot of PlayStation. I went and bought me a Chihuahua to have me some company in the house. And other than that, I'd go over to some of my teammates' house, the ones that spoke English, the French guys or the Spaniards who one of them lived right downstairs. Couldn't really speak too much English, but he can play the video game. And we hung out. We'd go eat. We'd go do things like that together. Go to the beach because it was a great beach city. So, and then other than that, it was just sleep because you wake up, you got practice in the morning, and you got your lunch, and then you take a little nap, and then you have practice again in the afternoon, and you eat dinner, and then it's time to go to sleep because you got to repeat it again the very next day. So we didn't have a whole lot of free time in my first year.
And moving forward, go through some of the other countries you played in and some of the leagues you played in. And what was what were some of your favorite experiences? And give me 2 or 3 places that you love to live. You're like, these are places I would go back again if I could.
Yeah, Milan, Italy is probably my favorite country overall, city and country overall, as far as basketball and food and people and nightlife, everything together. It would have to be Milan because everybody spoke English. The restaurants and food were really great. The people were really great, and teammates, and it was just so many things to do in Milan that I could move there today and be happy. Um, Istanbul on the European side was very nice. It was really Americanized. Everybody there spoke English. They had a lot of the American restaurants with the PF Chang's and the steakhouses and things like that. And everybody there spoke English, and the people were so outgoing and so friendly. It's another place that I could live if it wasn't so crazy at certain time. And then the last place would probably be Thessaloniki in Greece.
Oh wow.
It's small. Not as many people spoke English, but it was just a warm city. The people took to me well. The fans took to me well, and I really liked it out there. So those
Yeah.
would be the top three.
Now, out of all those places, what was, give me what are 1 or 2 experiences you look back on and think that was, whether it's playing basketball or just in your personal life, or, was there an experience you look back on and think that made it worth it, being there?
I would say basketball. Because I was in Russia, and when actually my old coach from Spain, the first team I ever went to, was in Milan, and he wanted to bring me back probably 10, 12 years later. And I left Russia when I was in a really great situation, but I knew it would be better for my family for them to be in Italy, for my daughter to be able to go to a school, my son to be able to interact in the school, because in Russia they didn't have an English speaking school; it was just a Russian school. So doing that and then being successful for that year, going to the finals. Unfortunately, we lost, but being able to play a role and to help the team get to the finals, I knew it was the right decision to make.
Did you play any NBA players over there?
In Russia, Trajan Langdon, he was
Okay.
on one of the Russian teams, and then there was a lot of ex NBA guys, and throughout, not actually in the country, but just playing abroad when we
Yep.
play, go to different countries to travel to play against different teams. A lot of NBA guys there. With Quintel Woods was one of them.
Oh yeah.
Um, I mean, it's a lot if I sit down and think about it. Ricky Paulding, it's a lot of guys over there.
Yeah, when I talked to Abdul Fox, who also played in Europe, and he played back in the late '90s and early 2000s, and one of the guys he played against was Manu Ginobili. So
Hmm.
that was obviously before he came over to San Antonio. But
Right.
it was interesting hearing his experiences. He goes, "Man, there were some great players over there."
Yes, yes, yes. Even the European player, they didn't get enough credit, but now they're starting to get seen, and they're
Oh
they're
yeah,
over. And I've said many times that Europe has taken over the NBA in certain aspects, and people question me like, "What do you mean?" I say, "Well, just look at all the league awards and see what you get. Like the MVP is Giannis. He was from Greece. The Defensive Player of the Year was Rudy Gobert. He was from France. The sixth man was an American, but then somebody else was a European. So you got to pay attention to those type of things. Those guys are really good. And now Luka's coming
well,
over and
Luca's.
taking the NBA for a storm.
Yep. And I really think looking back at your era back, 15, 20 years ago, it was the Manus and the Dirk Nowitzkis that kind of changed the direction of all that. I mean, Dirk, now obviously we know who he's all about. But when he first came in the league and same with Manu, I didn't even know who they were. And
Right,
I didn't think much of them in the first year or two. And then you look back and you're like, these guys are Hall of Famers. I mean, these
right,
guys are
right.
incredible. I mean, Dirk is an all timer. He's just, what he did in 2011 in the finals. I mean, I wouldn't say he did it by himself, but he didn't have at that time, those guys, and those guys were older.
We have a whole lot to
No, he
help.
didn't have a whole. I mean, Terry was going crazy, but
Yeah,
besides that, Mary and those guys were older at that time, and Dirk kind of carried that team over the big three.
that,
It was
that.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. The European, now in the NBA, I feel like the European style of play is more. I mean, it's the shooting, and there's more. There's guys here who can play. I even look at like Osman on the Cavs. There's all these guys who just, they're kind of these 6'7", 6'8", lengthy guys who can kind of play different positions, who can pass the ball real well, who
Mm-hmm.
win the cut. And it just seems like it's a lot of European influence. But when you look at that, what do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, in Europe, a lot of the players can 1 through 5 can step out and shoot that three. Like it never was a really dominant post player. And I think the NBA is starting to get towards that. We're losing the post player where you just throw it to the block. And I mean, you have the Jokic and the Embiid who can go down there, but they also can take you outside to the three and take you off the dribble and things like that. So it's evolved a lot. And like when you mentioned Osman, I completely forgot about, but we used to have a lot of battles when I was in Turkey. He was
Oh,
playing for
really?
a team in Istanbul,
Wow.
and he was more of a slasher, full court defense type of guy. And to see him how he's evolved from being able to shoot the three and slash and then handle the ball is like, man, this kid has gotten a lot better because when he was just a defensive stopper pretty much when he was over in Turkey. I don't know if that was his role, but that's what I knew him of, and that's what I knew him as. Seeing him now is that's amazing.
When you look at like, the 90s, early 2000s era compared to now, in Europe or in the NBA, but especially the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
guys like Hakeem Olajuwon and Shaq and David Robinson and these traditional centers and guys like, Patrick Ewing, if they were around today, what would their impact be? Would they have the same impact? Would they have a larger impact, or would they have not as much of an impact? Because I mean, you got to think Hakeem
Yeah,
and Shaq and those guys could play in any era, but
right.
what would their impact be?
On the offensive end, they would be dominant, like almost impossible. Not, I wouldn't say impossible. They would be very dominant. But on the defensive end, I think it would be hard for Shaq to come out and guard and be out by the NBA three when he can take it off the dribble, or Jokic, who can take it off the dribble, run a fake dribble handoff, then do a dribble handoff, roll, pop, shoot the three. So I think they would have pros and the cons, but I don't know which one would be higher, to be honest with you, because trying to put Embiid on Shaq or Olajuwon and down low would be a disaster in itself. Automatic bucket or a foul, get him in foul trouble. So it's pros and cons to both of them.
I agree. I think that's a great way to describe it. And like defensively, you're right. It would be tough for some of those guys to come out. I mean, maybe Olajuwon could because he was just a different kind of athlete. But younger Shaq maybe, but older Shaq was not. He was more just in the paint.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and you go at guys like Yao and Patrick Ewing is definitely a traditional center, and David Robinson, and those guys were just dominant. But at the same time, with how it is today, and shooting is so important, and 1 through 5 can shoot. It's like, well, I would find it interesting to see what they would be like in today's NBA and vice
Right.
versa.
There is no protecting the paint because that five is out there gonna shoot
Yeah, he
that
is.
in from three if you sit there and try to protect the paint.
Yeah, it's a fascinating. I've asked other former players the same thing, and they all have kind of similar answers. And like, would they be unstoppable offensively? Those big centers back then. But again, I don't know what their defensive impact would be. As far as having to go out and guard people, it'd be
Right,
interesting.
have to move their feet and the lateral quickness. We've never really had an opportunity to see that. Where there was no reason for them to do that, really.
No, it's interesting to see how the game has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So with you, finishing out your career over at Europe, what was the final step into moving back to the States?
I would say kind of forced back. They have a different mentality over there. At the age of 37, 38, they kind of say that you're old. So didn't have many offers as I thought I would. I still felt good. I still was playing at a high level, but it was just, and with their mentality and how the GMs and the teams worked, I would be a old guy who they didn't think would be able to move, which was funny to me because, I mean, the year before, let's say last year, I was playing 39 minutes a game in say 2020, and then 2021 comes up and I turned 38, and they say, well, we don't know if you're going to be able to move the same. It was only 2 months ago. I was just playing 39 minutes a game at the highest level. So, but that's how it kind of got me into looking into coaching. A lot of my old coaches always said that I should be a coach, and I really never thought I would become a coach because I didn't think I had just the heart to sit down somebody on the bench who comes to hard and practice every day and just don't play them. And I did some volunteer stuff at the high schools around here, and I went with my old coach 2 years ago at IUP University and just volunteer coached there. And I commuted, and the way the kids took to me and the way that I presented myself, it was just natural. And I came back home, and the high school job was available, and I took that.
So that was May of 2019 you took that job, or June of
Yes.
2019? Okay.
2019.
So was it kind of a no-brainer? It's your alma mater back in Cleveland, or was it something that you were kind of debating?
No, it was a no-brainer because 2018, the job was open as well. and everybody was asking me to apply for it, and I didn't think I was ready. I still thought I was going to go overseas and play. And then when that next year came after coaching with that college team, it was a no-brainer that I was going to apply for it and accept it if they offered it to me.
And what's that experience been like so far?
It's been great. It's really been great. I had a great group of guys last year who made the transition for me easy. They were really good players, but they still wanted to learn. They wanted to listen. They wanted to get better. So that helped me become comfortable being able to speak to that big group and put people in this place and discipline them in this spot because they took it the right way. And now I'm very comfortable with it.
What has coaching taught you?
It's I can understand how frustrated my coaches used to get sometimes. I really can see it. Sometimes you expect kids to know certain things that you know, or you see the game from a player's perspective, but as the coach, you can't look at it that way. Like you have to see the game from a coaching perspective because all the players are different. What they see is going to be different from what I see. So if I look at it as a player, what I see and I expect that out of them, I would get on them. Like my assistant was like, "With coach, they don't really understand that. You're seeing it because you have so many years, so much experience." So patience and being able to see it from a different view is probably the biggest thing that I've learned that I need to do and continue to work on.
I mean, I think my brother's a high school coach as well. He used to coach boys, and now he coaches girls. He
Mm-hmm.
coached for 25 years. He's a little bit old. He's like he's late 40s now.
Mm-hmm.
But he has, his experiences have been incredible, and he's had a lot of downs too. Some losing seasons and people quitting, and it could be difficult. And of course, parents who might complain, and you know how that
Oh,
goes.
the parents are probably the hardest part
That's
to.
that's what he said too. He always says that. He goes, the parents can be
Yeah.
challenging at times,
Yes,
and
they.
some of them are great, but other ones, they want their kids to play more, and they think they're, they go. Some of these parents think their kids LeBron James, and it's not always like that.
Right.
So, but I've learned from watching him coach and the passion he has for those kids and the passion he has for the game has really kind of inspired me. And I love watching his games. And
Mm-hmm.
he coaches down in Southern Ohio, but I try to get down there when I can. I haven't this year because of COVID, but
Right.
it's just so anytime I interview someone who's a coach, it's always kind of an honor because it's really people don't realize how much you guys take on.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't, and I really didn't realize how much that I was taking on accepting the job. Like you think you're just coaching for a couple months, but you're really like eight months out of the year. You're doing something with these kids, and they're calling you, and you're trying to help them get better. And for me, it's I'm coaching, but I'm still trying to just help them grow to become young men and prepare them for college and things that way. I don't really look at the wins and losses as to tell me if I'm doing well or if I'm not doing well. If the kids come back like from last year, like 3 or 4 of the kids out of the 6 have came back to the gym saying they miss it and this and that, and that's a win for me. Just knowing that I've helped them mature and helped them get ready for the next step in life.
That's a huge win. And I think when I look back at when I played, and I only played freshman year and I played, of course, before that, but just my younger days in playing organized sports. And at that time you care, as a kid, you want to win, but looking back now, it's the coaches who I look back and I think, wow, they actually taught me a lot. You don't realize it at the time because you're so young.
Right,
You look
right.
back like, man, that guy was a really great leader. And you just don't, it's funny how they instill certain things in you that you don't even realize until 10, 15 years later.
Later, yeah. Or they'll come back and like, Coach, I should have listened to you. You was right about it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm trying to tell you, but it's, as a kid, it's hard. You see things in a different way, and as long as they understand that they know that I'm here for them and I have their best interests, and that's all I really care about is them growing and becoming young men, and that's when I think they really run through the wall for you, and they genuinely know that you care about them as a person, not just what they can do for you on the court, and after that, can care less about them.
No question about that. And, looking back right now, I ask everybody this question. I think it's interesting to hear the answers, but for people who never saw you play or didn't know much about your game, what do you want the younger generation to know about your career, your legacy?
Um, that I worked my butt off all the time for my whole basketball career. Yeah, in the gym, during practice, I gave everything I had. In the games, I gave everything I had. And outside the gym, when everybody else might have been doing something different, I was working on my craft, and that work ethic is really what got me to where I was and what's got me to where I am now. And that's what I pride myself on, is being known as a hard worker, a coachable kid, a person that you can come to and talk about anything. And any of my old coaches that you go to, the first thing they're going to say is he worked his butt off. And then they'll start talking about the basketball and the points and things like that. But to get to that level, you have to work that much harder. It can't just be in practice. Everybody's working in practice. So you're all on the same playing field. How do you separate yourself as outside of practice? What are you doing on your own time to get better?
Work ethic is everything. There's no doubt about it. I remember watching my brother when he was little playing in the snow, shooting baskets in the snow. I thought he was nuts. And I was probably 5, 6 years old, and I thought, what is this guy doing? But I look back now, and I know what he was doing now. He was working. So,
sometimes me and my boy, we would go out in the middle of the night to the courts, and we'd have the car, we'd turn the lights on bright, and we'd be playing one-on-one in pitch black. Since if the lights went off, you couldn't see each other if he was standing in front of you. But we just, whatever it took to try to get better, we did it.
So last question for you. What, besides the coaching at Cleveland Heights, what else are you up to these days?
That's it. Raising my 3 kids. My daughter, she does gymnastics. My middle son, he plays football and basketball. So trying to teach him the game the right way. And my youngest son, he's 2, so he's running around. So other than coaching, it's pretty much just family time. I don't do anything other than that.
That's great. I'm glad. It's nice that you got to come back home. It's interesting how that turned out. And just in time, the Browns finally got good.
That was perfect timing.
I've been talking to so many of my friends who are, from Cleveland. They live elsewhere now. And they're like, man, I wish I was back in Cleveland to, obviously with COVID, we can't really enjoy it all as much as we want. But it's been one of those years where, people who are not from Cleveland don't understand, with the Browns especially, what that means to the city. And it's a big deal. Browns football is everything here.
So. Right.
So it's fun watching the former players. CJ McCollum and those guys too, shouting, everybody, everyone's excited about it. So it's cool. Unfortunate what happened with COVID with, Coach Stefanski and all them, but it is.
No, we lost everything. The
Antonio and
coordinator, the tight end class. Man.
I wish they would postpone the game a week. I don't know how the scheduling goes, but it's just unfortunate we're going to be missing a certain amount of guys because of something out of our control.
It is.
It's just, it is what it is. But it's just, I would like to have Stefanski there. It'd be nice to have Coach there.
He's everything. The play cut, the offensive coordinator, everything. He's not just a head coach. So. And
he's such a level-headed guy. He's just real cool and calm. And, him and Andrew Barry, they brought in 2 fantastic people.
They did.
To run this organization. They finally got it right, in my opinion. And it's showing because you can see the culture changing.
It took time. It took a long, long time, but it's better to get it right than to keep looking. So
I totally agree.
We're in the right position now.
I completely agree. Well, JR, thank you so much for coming on the show. And, you're welcome again anytime. Love to have you again.
All right. Thank you.
And again, good luck with your season moving forward. And we'll talk again soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.